Hello there. What is going on, everyone? We're going to be talking about the Dominator, a title that maybe you don't use or haven't seen used in quite a while. It's a title for the Victory class Star Destroyer in Star Wars Armada, and it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. We're going to be asking the question, is it a stud or is it a dud in this video? If you guys are new here to the channel, I do talk a lot about Star Wars and tabletop gaming, where those two meet. If you're interested in either of those two, you're in the right place. I'd love to have you guys stick around. We are also doing the 12 Days of Life Day giveaways all throughout December to enter to win any of those. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. I want to hear some of your favorite cards. Let me know, do you think this is a stud or a dud? Also, what other cards should we look at from Star Wars Armada? And ask that question, is it a stud or is it a dud? And we're going to start today with the Dominator, as I'm preparing for a big tournament for Armada just around the corner, toying around with some list ideas. You know, this is one that was thrown at me in our Discord. If you guys aren't already in our Discord, you should jump into it. There's links in the video description below. You can check that out and join and keep the discussion going there. It's a title for the Victory Star Destroyer. It's absurdly expensive. So let's break it down. We'll talk about it a little bit. It says, while attacking at close to medium range, you may spend up to 2 shields from any of your hull zones to add that number of blue dice to your attack pool. So it's a 12-point title. It's only for the Victory Star Destroyer. Now, first thing that's wrong with this, there's a whole lot right and a whole lot wrong. So I'll talk about what's wrong with it first. It's 12 points. That's a very expensive title. It's absurdly expensive. I think it's the most expensive title in the entire game. On top of that, it costs shields to use. The Victory Star Destroyer doesn't have that many shields, but it does want to have, you know, it definitely wants to use shields as for one, to keep itself alive. But the other thing is it's got 2 redirect tokens. So like the bulk of this ship's survivability is fundamentally based around, you know, hey, I've got 1 brace token, but I've got 2 redirects. I've got to use those shields to stay alive. And it has some good staying power while it has shields. So the fact that you're using its lifeblood to stay alive is another cost for this on top of the absurdly expensive 12 points. The other thing that's wrong with it is that you have to be attacking at close to medium range, which means that you don't get to take advantage of the 3 red dice in both of the Victory's front arcs. You don't get to take advantage of the long range attack possibilities that this thing has. And when you're safest, and so all of these things add up to a bunch of negatives that all work together with each other. You're safe at long range, and that's when you would want to actually be able to spend shields. But the fact that you have to get close to medium means that you're also going to be getting the most return fire possible. So you're most vulnerable when you're at close to medium range. And that also means you're going to need those shields even more than you would otherwise. And then that means that this ship is going to die. And then not only are you going to give a ship, the Victory class Star Destroyer, that's already overcosted in today's game, not only are you going to give your opponent all of the points from that Victory Star Destroyer, but you're also going to give them 12 more victory points for this obsessively overcosted title. So like while it has, you know, 3 distinct different negatives, they all work together and kind of they're sort of multipliers off of each other to make the negatives even worse. And so that's you know, there's a whole lot bad there, but it's not all bad because there is some good. What's good about this ship is that it's adding dice. Now there are not that many. You know, there are not that many upgrade cards in the game that are not modifications that add dice. Most of the things that add a single die are modifications. It's very rare to be able to add dice to your attack pool outside of it being a modification. And sometimes when people will talk about trying to come up with enormously high attack pools, this is one of the cards that sometimes gets thrown into the mix. It's unfortunate that it happens to fall on a Victory and not on something else, because of the fact that you could get even more dice if it were on an ISD or something like that. It's also unfortunate that that the limiter is close to medium range, because ideally, what would be nice is if it didn't have the close to medium range, it would be a lot more viable, because you could combo it with disposable capacitors and make a long range shot that also adds your blue dice, and then you could add even more dice, and you can end up with a really nice long range shot. And so it prohibits you from doing a lot of like really sweet spot things to make it work. But the fact that it's forcing you to put yourself in medium range to get extra dice, and also being highly costed on a highly costed ship, means you're not going to have a huge activation count to make this ship work. Like if you tried to max on cheap ships, you might be able to get this guy to go last. But it's also a slow ship that's not really able to get closing the gap. It's not able to get where it needs to be fast enough to make this work. It's not able to threaten enemy fleets in a very fast way. And one of the things that kind of fixes that is the title Harrow, which, if you could run multiple titles of this, and Harrow would work a lot better together, but you can't do that. But there's another good thing about this, in that while it is adding dice, there are some other titles that can potentially add dice that usually have pros and cons with them as well. This one isn't restricted to any particular hull zone, and so that's another good thing about the Dominator, is that a lot of times when you do get close, people are very quick to try to speed up and get out of your front arc. And so this way, if you get a side arc shot on somebody that's normally, mid to low power level for the Victory's side arc, it's not completely terrible, but there are better, it's not that great. You're getting at best 3 dice if they're at medium or closer in the side arc, and this can kind of bring that up to be a respectable attack. So, that makes your side arcs a little bit more threatening potentially. And, all of these things considered, it's largely seen as a dud by a lot of folks. But I'm asking the question, is it a dud or is it a stud? I'm probably going to say, as a whole, it falls closer to the dud side for me. Because of all those things that we talked about. It does have some bonuses. And one of the things that makes it more of a stud, that gives it some redeeming qualities, is that this one can add 2 dice to an attack pool. It's not just adding 1 die. This one can add 2 dice. And that's really cool. It doesn't have, like there's a comparable title that's Devastator, which can add dice too. It has its own set of limitations and its own opportunity costs and stuff. That one only costs 10. And that one kind of can add potentially 4 dice to an attack pool, but it's, it usually doesn't. But you have to have the defense token spent for that to work already, and that's an ISD title. This one is just adding 2, like, outright, which is really cool. So I like that. It costs you to spend shields. If you can manage it, like in the Cinderella case for this, is that you get like an enemy flagship or a high value target that that moves in. You guys are doing your initial movement to contact, and they come in a little bit too fast, and then just have that corner barely at medium range. So you do, but maybe they didn't shoot you yet, and you haven't been shot, and there's other targets, and now all of a sudden you now have that that medium shot, and you're full strength. You get to add 2 blue dice. Maybe you got some blue crits on there, and you roll a really high attack pool. It's definitely possible, but it's uncertain. Blue dice are fairly likely to give you something, since there are no blanks. But also, how many accuracies do you really need in that attack pool? If you're running a Vic 2, you've already got 3 blue in there. That's usually enough. 5 blue is still nothing to sneeze at. Maybe you did a concentrate fire as well. I think this one also really works well for the Vic 1, potentially. If you're trying to go for a big black die victory, this is a way for you to get blue dice into an attack pool that didn't have any, and give you a better chance at getting some accuracies to go along with that black die attack pool. However, by the time you're at close range and able to make that shot really work, you may be dead or very near to it, and then do you really want to spend those shields if you even have any left? That's the big another big risk of this is that if you put it on a Vic 1, trying to get the blue accuracies added to a black die attack pool, which is a really cool thing to do, are you going to have any shields left at that point? And if you do, are you going to spend your last shields here just to be almost certainly killed the very next turn? Because, by the way, you're at close range to a target that obviously is going to have some firepower to throw back at you if you launched the Dominator at them to try to take them down. So it's like you better kill them, otherwise you are dead next turn. So it's like it's very, very high risk. What makes it feel closer to a stud for me is the fact that it is high risk. It's like a shotgun blast full of D100s, and you're hoping to get something crazy in there. But you're spending your life essence to kind of fuel this attack, and it's cool, and it's also unexpected. Your opponents aren't going to see it coming, or at least aren't going to expect it to be coming before the game setup. That is, you're running a Vic with Dominator, you're going to surprise some people, and that can lead to a really fun game of Armada. And the kind of the metagame where we haven't seen, new ship expansions come out in a long time, to be able to set up a fleet and have ships that surprise your opponent is a very fun thing to do, not just for your game, but for your community as a whole, because then maybe your opponent's going to be like, man, I flew against a Dominator yesterday or something like that. So there's a really cool aspect there. Overall, though, that fun factor, while it can be good enough for some, it's not enough to raise it into the stud category. So it is still going to be a dud right now. As far as if we were to fix it, I feel like it could probably go down in points cost a little bit, but then again, it's dangerous to really do that. I don't know if it needs to be fixed. I think it's probably good enough where it is to just be a less than desirable title. Not everything has to be optimized. Not everything has to be perfect in all situations. It's a situational title. And I feel like it probably works better on the Victory 2 on a ship that can, maximize its firepower at medium range, where at least it's not likely to be killed the very next turn, where you can get your big payday punch at a medium range that gives you at least a modicum of safety. Maybe that's the way to go with it. I'm going to go ahead and turn around at this point and transition over into doing a build with the Dominator. So I'll just give you guys a sample build for a list that you might run. I'm using Ryan Kingston's Fleet Builder here. And here we've got a Vic 2 with the Dominator. I put Admiral Ozzel on this ship as an officer to give it a little bit, so we can get a little closer. Maybe I can actually get this shot off before round 4. Wouldn't that be amazing? Also, gunnery team. Hey, look, we're going to run disposable capacitors on this thing. And spinal armament. I want this to be a long-range victory anyway. I still want to be able to get some decent long-range shots regardless. So we're going with spinal armament. And heavy ion emplacements. Got to have the blue crits in there. We're going to maximize our blue dice. Let's try to get that blue crit, do even more damage. So now if I get that medium range shot, I start off with 4 red, 5 blue, possibly concentrated fire. Let's see what we roll first. Heavy ion emplacements. Okay, boom. Let's add. We didn't get the crit. Let's add the blue. All right, now gunnery team. Let's do the second shot. And by the way, we did disposable capacitors the first turn, the first turn. So we're not like we're really maximizing what this ship can do, and we might not even need Dominator if we kill him at long range, right? So we could probably kill some small ships at long range and save Dominator for the final slug out. To make this work, I had to add a couple of other things. So I had to add some different high value targets that they probably want to shoot instead of Dominator, and I decided let's go with something similar. Let's put Devastator on there. So I did an ISD2. I put Vader on the ISD2. I want my rerolls for the Vic 2. I want lots of rerolls. I want to try and make sure that those red dice come up as doubles as often as possible. Maximize the value of getting that blue accuracy, and also wanted some prevention in case I end up rolling like 4 blue accuracies. So Vader's on there as my commander. Vader also works well with Devastator. Look, Devastator and Dominator, both crazy expensive titles. So Vader's going to help Devastator get crazy strong. You're going to be very tempted to shoot Devastator, which might not have any defense tokens left by the time we get at medium range of the Victory 2. We do have the ECM to help keep Devastator alive long enough to make everything work. Put XI7s on there as well. With this list, we're running kind of overpowered ships and or overcosted titles, or at least highly costed titles. So one of the things we're going to be weak on is squadrons. So I put the point defenses on there for the ISD2, which will go out first. It'll be closer to the action. I put a Raider in here. Raider 1 with flechette torpedoes and instigator to kind of maybe lock down or slow down some enemy squadrons from doing their crazy stuff. I put a Gazanti in here and 2 TIE fighters. So that is kind of a sample build. Not a whole lot of squadron presence here, just enough to slow things down a hint. The TIE fighters just to get in there, just enough for this Raider to fly in with instigator, keep some squadrons engaged, keep them in place. Fire flechette torpedoes next turn, maybe slow them down for an extra turn or 2 if I can manage my speed well enough. And just really let the ISD, Devastator, and the Dominator. We could call them the double Ds, right? No, maybe not. We'll come up with a better list for the name, or a better name for the list, or something like that. Darth Vader, the triple Ds, Darth's, Devastator, and Dominator. There you go. But that name's already taken by the Food Network for our diners, drive-ins, and dives. So I don't know what we're gonna name this list, but we'll call it crazy costed titles or something like that. It's just an idea, though. It's at 400 points. We've got no bid here. But again, this isn't a list that's really trying to win at all costs and really not trying to play the objective very much. It's just trying to get in there and make the Dominator work. And that's a kind of a cool thing about a list like this, is because this is a way that you can go in and just have fun with the game and say, look, I'm going to win if I can make Dominator work. And if it does work, that's great. Now, there's lots of other ways to run Dominator. You could run this with shield transferring ships. You could run a Gladiator Star Destroyer in there with projection experts and kind of replenish its shields. I think that's a whole engine that you don't really have time to let it develop. I don't think it's really worthwhile to do that. I think shields in this game, at least for this type of ship, are best just spent as extra bullets that you only have so many of. And then once they're spent, they're gone. If you get one good shot out of Dominator, that's great. If you get more than one shot out of Dominator, amazing. So if you're able to spend like 3 shields on this, or even 4 shields on this for 2 rounds of shooting, that's awesome. If your opponent decided to shoot your flagship instead of your victory Dominator, then great. That means more bullets for Dominator. If they shoot the Dominator instead of your flagship, then hey, your ISD just gets to punish them for that. I think an opponent will probably go for this a little bit more aggressively than for your flagship, because the more they shoot your flagship, the more you're going to power up its next shot with Devastator. But then again, you're kind of, in both cases, you're kind of self-sabotaging yourself to increase the amount of firepower that your ships can put out. And that leads for a very exciting and fun game, and maybe you'll lose, or maybe you'll go down swinging, or maybe you'll take out your opponent very, very aggressively, and then you'll both kind of laugh and shake hands afterwards. I just think it's a kind of a fun idea and a way to make Dominator work. But I want to hear some of your thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of Dominator. Do you think it's a stud or a dud? Do you agree with me, or I think it still falls into the dud category, but goodness, it really gave it the old college try? And what other cards do you want to see talked about? We'll talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes, and always wash your socks.